Excuse me, Ramji. Hello, Ramji.
Hello, sir.
Dr. Rajnish came. I'm not able to hear Ramji. I'm not able to hear you.
Okay. Now, good afternoon. Rajnish is there.
Okay.
Hello?
Dr. Rajnish,
Yes.
I'll introduce you, then you start.
Yeah, sure, Dr. Sahu.
So
Please.
I think let's take stock of the whoever is present, then we can formally start.
Okay, sir. Dr. Sahu?
Can we?
I think so. I mean, it's up to you. It's already
Let me welcome everybody, and it is our fourth day and last day of our conference. And today, this particularly conference, we have Dr. Rajnish Gupta, who is very good friend of mine and who was one of the founding member of the GRFDT, where now he again there as chairperson today.
I'm still part of GRFDT, sir.
Yes. You were there very much and were there today chairing. And Dr. Gupta is also a faculty member at CUG, Central University of Gujarat, Diaspora Studies Center. His research interest includes Indian diaspora in Africa, and he has done extensively work on foreign policy, Indian diaspora, and several other issues. Presently, he is also, one of the main coordinator of conference last month he has done. Besides, he is also publishing regularly. And without taking much time, I hand over this session to you, Dr. Gupta.
Hello. Good afternoon from India. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever, wherever you are sitting. And it's a pleasure to meet in this virtual world, though we are not able to meet physically, but technology has brought us closer, and we are able to connect to each other through the virtual world. Well, I will not take much time. It is a self-understood fact that migration is a phenomena which is ongoing since ages. Even before the beginning of the modern civilization, human beings have been migrating. In fact, it was the civilization and the modern civilization, I would say, when we have imposed the artificial boundaries in the name of national sovereignty, and we have created borders, and we have created down number of restrictions on the movement of the people. Nevertheless, migration is taking place to some other forms now within the rules and regulation formulated by the national governments. There has been unprecedented growth in the migration in last few years. And as per the reports of the United Nations, currently there are about 3.5% international migrants. On the other hand, diasporic communities are those communities which basically identify themselves with the motherlands, though they might have born in that country of which is called the country of that as their destiny. They might have, their forefather have migrated from one part of the world to other part, but they still identify themselves, at least in cultural sense, with their mother countries, from where their foreparents migrated. So diaspora and migration are interlinked term. In the age of globalization, these countries have been recognized as important factor in international relations, and those have been recognized by the various nation states and have been studied by the scholars through different perspective, the perspective of literature, sociology, anthropology, and international relations. The COVID-19 has brought tremendous changes in this world system, and it is expected that the post-COVID world order would not be the same as it was in the until the 2020. With these initial remarks, I would like to welcome to all the paper presenters in this session. The list which was given to me covers some 8 paper presenters. However, I got a message that one Dr. Medha Bhattacharya has already make her presentation in one of the previous session. So now we have 7 paper presenters in this session. And what I propose, the structure of this session, we have 2 hours. And so in 120 minutes, I would like to keep some, let's say, 20 minutes for the discussions. And so I would expect from each presenters to complete their observations, their, whatever their intellectual inputs, in, let's say, in between 12 to 15 minutes each. So with this, is it okay? So 12 to 15 minutes, each paper presenter would be making their presentation, and thereafter we will have a question answer session at the end, after the presentation of the all papers. Is it okay? So with this, I invite Professor Dr. Kaji Abdul Manan, who will be making presentation on migration, diasporas, remittances, and sustainable development goals in Bangladesh. I welcome Professor Kaji Abdul Manan. Professor Kaji, can you hear me? Are you there?
I don't think he's there, sir. I don't think he's there because the screen, in the screen, he's not present.
Dr. Gupta, you take a talk first who are available, then you, I think.
Okay. So, yeah, that's better way, in fact, because we are meeting in a virtual world. So, okay, let's mark attendance. I would say attendance first. Professor Kaji Abdul Manan, is he there? No. Mr. Amlesh Kumar Sinha.
Yes, sir. Hello, sir. I'm here.
Okay. Dr. Ivegni Gambreman. Dr. Ivegni Gambreman.
Я не могу здесь ничего нажать. Где это? Что?
Okay, so I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong because of some linguistics difficult challenges. So, okay, you are here. Dr. Jessica Hong. Dr. Jessica Hong. Are you there?
Hello, yes, I'm here. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Hello. Hello.
Sorry?
My name is Evgeny Gamerman.
Okay, German, you are also here now. That's okay. That I have marked your attendance. Dr. Jessica Huang is here.
Вообще ничего.
Ramji Timalsna.
Okay, I'm here.
Timalsna, you are here. Okay, I can see you. Mr. Ahmed Walid Palrash. Mr. Ahmed? No? Okay. Dr. Nupur Patnaik?
Yes, I am here.
And last, Oliva Chawat.
Rafat,
Oliva
yes,
Chawat? Yeah, you can see. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 6 speakers in this session. So we have enough time. Now we can assign 15 minutes to each. So may I invite Dr. Evgeny Gamerman. Dr. Evgeny Gamerman, who will be making his presentation on migration processes and demographic security in the Russian Far East. I repeat the topic again: migration processes and demographic security in the Russian Far East. Dr. Gamerman, please.
Okay. I would like to speak about migration processes and demographic security in the Russian Far East. The relationship between migration and security is by no means new. However, it is also ambitious. The inclusion of migration threats in the list of security problems is considered today in the European scientific community to be politically incorrect and even undemocratic. However, both in Europe and in North America, there are serious analytical works of specialists in the field of security studies, fully or partially devoted to the problems of migration in the context of international, regional, and national security. There is no specific term, concept that unites the spectrum of these threats. Therefore, the most often used construction is migration and security. By demographic security, they also understand the state of protection of the process of natural renewal of generation of people associated with the improvement of human life and an increase in the effectiveness of demographic policy and the expansion of demographic freedom. At the same time, there are no absolutely precisely measurable indicators of how much population should be in a particular territory. The Far East has traditionally been a region of intensive migration processes. Currently, the outflow of the population within the framework of internal Russian migration prevails. In the geographical structure of migration, which form a negative migration balance in the region since 1991. At the same time, international migration has a positive balance. In the post-Soviet period and up to 2005, the share of the countries of the former Soviet Union in the dynamics of the migration growth of the Far East was unstable and fluctuated from 94% in 1998 to up to 6% in 2004. A period from 2005 to present, it is characterized by a stable positive balance of migration with foreign countries, where the share of post-Soviet countries stably exists 65% and ranges from 68% to 96% in 2011. An important element of the post-Soviet migration processes is the immigration of the population from post-Soviet countries. As a part of the study of dynamics of permanent migration, attention is drawn to the increase in the number of migrants from the countries of the former Soviet Union. The negative correlation in the Far Eastern Federal District allows us to say that the decrease in the number of migrants in the district does not have a significant effect on the decrease in crime rates in the environment compared to the national average. We can also note the growth of crimes against foreigners. The maximum number of crimes committed by foreigners in Russia was not in 2009 with a subsequent, albeit very slow decline. If we consider this indicator as example in the region of the Far East, then here we can note a slightly different picture compared to the average Russian indicators. An initial decrease in the indicator similar to general trends, and then it surged since 2012, followed by an unstable state, while in 2015 observed the maximum number of crimes in the last 10 years. Throughout post-Soviet history, the Russian Far East has been experiencing depopulation processes caused by a number of reasons. Remotions from the center of the country, high cost of goods and transport services, low level of development of the entire social infrastructure, lack of prospects and hopes for the future, no programs that have been adopted with greater or lesser effectiveness over the past 15 years have had tangible success. The Far Eastern factor gave a very sporadic effect and not only did not attract a new population, but also did not stop the outflow of the indigenous. Pre-financial Far Eastern mortgage 2% per annum led only to a legible increase in prices in the housing market, and in the end, consumers lost more than one. So in 1991, the population of the Far East was 8 million and 63,000 people. 5 years later, in 1996, 7 million and 300,000. In 2018, before the inclusion of two new subjects in the Far Eastern Federal District, the population of the district was 6 million and 100,000 people. That is, over 27 years, the population of the Far East was decreased by 1,800,000 people. That is by 23.5%. Economists, demographers, politicians, and other consider this process one of the main threats to Russia's security in the East. Such prospect implies a need for a sufficiently significant labor force. Modern Russian legislation do not allow to actively attract foreign labor, with the exception of the countries of the customs union. It is necessary to make adjustment to the migration legislation, significantly simplifying it in terms of labor migration, especially qualified labor force. This adjustment can be regional in nature or be adopted for the whole country, which is more correct. It is necessary to detect labor migrants from India, China, Brazil, Iran, South Africa. This should be done without prejudice to the employment of the local population, but without migrants, it will not be possible to implement infrastructure facilities. Thank you very much for your attention.
Well, very brief, precise, and quite informative presentation. With this, sorry, are you through now? With this, I invite Dr. Jessica Huang, who is making a presentation on learning from practitioners, enabling innovation among refugee communities, health workers in Kakuma, Kenya. So we would have a presentation on Kenya now. I invite, yeah, please.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I'm just going to share my screen.
Hello?
First to open your screen, computer, then you can share. First to open the PPT which you want to share. First to open that, then it will open share screen. Otherwise, if there is difficulty, you can just read out.
Hello, I apologize.
No,
for
no,
that.
I think you can share now. There was co-host issue. I made already.
Wonderful, thank you. Sorry, I just got
Yeah, Jessica, we can see your screen now.
excellent. Thank you.
And please speak little louder.
Sure, of course. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I'm really thrilled to be here today to present to you a bit of our work interviewing and observing community health workers in the Kakuma refugee settlements in Kenya, because we think it's really important to be listening to the perspectives of people doing this work on the ground to inform future refugee health education work. So this is the roadmap of our presentation today, and without further ado, I'll just dive straight into the background. As mentioned, this work was done in 2019 in the Kakuma camps 1 through 4, with a little bit of work as well in Kalabea Integrated Settlement in Turkana, northwestern part of Kenya, quite near the border with South Sudan. This is a context facing many challenges and overcoming many challenges. Of course, there's incredible resiliency that we see in being creative in managing with the infrastructure and resources that are available there. There is high diversity of community members, and people are also finding ways to work through curfew, the limited work permit policies. There's different tensions and trust, as we often see between refugees and host community members, and also between refugee groups coming from very diverse contexts, and so forth. And as mentioned earlier, the goal of this work was to inform organizations that are doing refugee health education so that we can listen to the perspectives of the community health workers who are tasked with this and see what we can learn from them. And also to help us advocate to the broader ecosystem of stakeholders around how we can better support practitioners in doing refugee health education. And for this, we had a particular lens of looking at innovation. So as a sample of some of the research questions, we were looking at the perspectives of community health practitioners on the opportunities and challenges for innovating to improve refugee health education in the Kakuma context. And we're also looking at what forms of support would community health practitioners like from employing organizations and other stakeholders to continue innovating to improve refugee health education. This work consisted of a literature review that then informed the field work, which consisted of interviews and observations. And then we did coding and analysis on the results from interviews and observations to pull out some relevant themes. In reviewing the literature, there were very many analytical frameworks out there that we could draw upon, and many excellent concepts there that could inform this work. Just to give a brief sense, I know this chart has a lot on it. We looked broadly at the literature around humanitarian innovation, around health education in refugee contexts, as well as capacity building. And again, just to give you a sense, here's some visuals that were created to help summarize some of the concepts that were found in the literature, such as factors that influence health literacy, and a spectrum of humanitarian innovation that we see everything from more top-down organization-led innovation to more grassroots bottom-up refugee-led innovation. So we were able to interview 16 refugee community health workers, 9 of which were male, 7 female, and 75%, so 12 out of the 16 were refugees themselves. And we also looked at several different areas of refugee health education work spanning maternal and child health, special needs, and children with disabilities, nutrition, vaccinations, water, sanitation, hygiene, mental health, and so forth. I'm not going to go over this, but this is just to give a sense of some of the themes and sub-themes that came out of the interviews and field observations. And I thought it would be helpful to pull out a few quotes that are illustrative of some of these themes. So for example, one of the practitioners interviewed said that they sometimes have to remind others and even themselves that they're a refugee too, which we find is really important. It's often community health workers are tasked with so much, and for somebody to be also a refugee themselves, surviving in the settlements on top of doing their work, it's just an important consideration to keep in mind as we think about how we can better support them. And then also this really powerful quote that what is normal is different for everyone, especially when it comes to health education that is very dependent on the cultural context, is very dependent on very, very many things. So it is important to consider what people find normal and to make sure that when we're doing this work, we're not stigmatizing things and not making judgments that we don't need to make, and instead are focusing on increasing access to refugee education through the most innovative ways and effective ways that we can think of. So some of the major themes that came out, you saw the outline earlier. Here's just a quick summary of a few strands of some of these themes. One is that health education is often seen as a separate activity from other work. It can be disconnected from other services such as food distribution, latrine building, but we know that health education is very connected to a lot of this. Nutritional information should be tied to food distribution. For example, water, sanitation, and hygiene information can also be tied to some of the other work that's being done. And so this is a barrier, and the practitioners were saying that some of the opportunities for work here are to find ways to better integrate health education work into other services that are happening in the refugee settlements. Another major barrier, of course, our programs are often challenged by limited resources, financial resources in particular, as well as a limited critical mass of trained key actors. But there are also incredible assets in a refugee settlement, and that's one thing that we were learning from these interviews and observations. So refugees and host community members alike can be very strong assets for doing community health education and outreach. And then another interesting finding was that we all know of the cluster coordination systems, I believe, in many refugee settlements. But unfortunately, sometimes even with a cluster coordination system, stakeholders can be left out of collaborations, in particular, some of the smaller community-based organizations that are often refugee-run. And so some of the refugee health practitioners that we were talking to, the community health workers, were saying that it would be great to find ways to make sure that we're connecting with everyone who's doing this work, no matter how large or small a stakeholder they are, and to make sure that we can be seeking support and incentives to increase the sharing of information and collaboration. So again, some of the key takeaways here are there's opportunities for innovation through integration by including some of the insiders and the great assets that exist within the refugee settlements, and by incentivizing collaboration. And these are some of the ways in which we can overcome some of the barriers that we've heard the refugee community health workers express. Some of the next steps that we hope to pursue in the future are to develop some case studies around particular health themes. That way we can get a little bit more nuanced and go a bit more in depth. So for example, diving a bit more into maternal child health, mental health, and water, sanitation, and hygiene, as we had some excellent information from the practitioners in these themes. with that, I want to make sure we leave plenty of time for the others. We welcome any questions and thank you again for convening this important session. Really looking forward to hearing the other presentations and feel free to contact me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well presented, Dr. Jessica. Now, before I invite Ramji Timal Sinha, I skip one paper presentation on America. Mr. Amlesh Kumar Sinha. As per the list supplied to me, he should be the first paper presenter, but somehow I could not invite him. So may I invite now Mr. Amlesh, who will be making presentation on hate crimes and perspectives of American dream. Amlesh, are you there?
I don't see him because in the screen.
Okay, he's also not here. Okay, then. Then now, Mr. Ramji Timal Sinha, please begin your presentation, which is themed on transnational perspective in the theorization of Nepali diaspora and its literature. So, Ramji, it's over to you.
Okay, good afternoon. Namaste from Nepal.
Namaste, namaste.
This is the title of my presentation, Transnational Perspective in the Theorization of Nepali Diaspora and its Literature. I'm happy to be here, and I would like to thank the organizer and respected chairperson, Dr. Gupta, all the fellow participants, everybody. Good afternoon once more. Before I go for my presentation, I would like to share this thought from a former NRNA, Non-Residential Nepali Association chairperson, Upendra Mahatto from Russia. 3 years ago in a program, he said, if the people of Nepali origin cannot travel back to Nepal in their own lifetime, their soul is sure to travel back. It was a very emotional idea. And this is connected with the diaspora, their life, and their transnational connections. This indicates in either in the physical form or in the emotional form, diasporans are the people who cross the border for any region, go across the border. Here, the transnational link of diasporans can be seen. Similarly, 3 days ago, in the keynote speech, Professor Petrovec, he mentioned that he was frustrated with the synonymous use of diaspora and transnationalism. How we are misusing the terms theoretically, it was his great concern, which I'm also not concerned about. Yesterday, chairing the plenary session, Vinod Khadri again, he talked about the same thing. He talked how we have been using the term diaspora, and he stressed on the fact that everyone who is out of nation is not a diaspora. But we are using the term as if everybody who crosses the border is a diaspora. I agree with these statements about our use and theorization of diaspora and transnationalism. But still, we do not forget that no diaspora without border crossing is possible. The border crossing is the must for the diaspora. That border crossing may be, most of the time, physical or maybe emotional, imaginary. They may travel to imaginary homeland or the real homeland, but there is a border crossing. In that sense, every diasporic phenomenon is a border crossing phenomenon, and this is a transnational phenomenon. And that's why when we talk about diaspora, we must be careful about, we must think about or connect this with the history of transnationalism. This is my first point. Right. Now, Okay, let me go for this one. Okay, if so, but again, we should not think that all transnationals, okay, are diasporans. Everybody who crosses the border is not again diaspora, though diaspora are transnationals. And so, and finally, diaspora is a group of permanently settled people who have connection, physical, emotional, or imaginary, with their land of origin, homeland. But they are permanently settled in the host land. That criteria should not be forgotten once we are talking about diaspora and connecting them with transnationalism. On this theoretical background, my paper deals with this idea in the connection with Nepali diaspora and its literature. Okay, and this paper is part of my ongoing book project entitled Transnationalism and Nepali Diaspora, Life and Literature. This is part of this book project. And then on this theoretical background, Nepali transnational communities can be divided into three broad categories. Those who cross the border of Nepal and go anywhere else in the world, they are of three categories. The first ones are the diaspora. Second, transnational mobiles. Both of them they can be economic immigrants or cosmopolitans. And the last one, transnational outsiders. Diasporans are the people who are permanently settled outside Nepal and have many physical and some emotional as well as imaginary connection with Nepal. And transnational mobiles are those communities who are living outside Nepal, but they are frequently visiting Nepal and they don't have any chance of being permanently settled in the host land. But they are traveling as a part of legal system, as a part of, very much formal system. But those last category, transnational outsiders, they are the people who are outside Nepal. At the same time, they are outside the host land. This double outsidedness, for example, the refugees who stay in America, some of the refugees of Nepal refugees, they stay there, right? They are neither legal in America, they cannot expose themselves there. It means they're outside America, but they are not in Nepal, they're outside Nepal. So this double outsidedness, but they have crossed the border, they make the transnational outsider. So there are three types of transnational communities, who are staying outside Nepal. Among them, right, based on their mobility and locality, which is the idea of Janine Dahinden, right, the theories of transnational and diaspora, right, we can find that this Nepali diaspora, let's leave other two categories, transnational mobiles and transnational outsider. When we go to diaspora themselves, we can divide again Nepali diaspora into three broad categories. The first one is established Nepali diaspora. Second one is incipient Nepali diaspora. And the third one is dormant Nepali diaspora. Let me talk about the first one. Established Nepali diaspora are the people who are localized diasporic transnational formations, according to Janine Dahinden's terminology. It means what? It means they are they are permanent residents, well established in the host land. And Nepalis of this nature are found in India, Bhutan, Myanmar, Fiji, and England. There are established Nepali diasporas, permanently well settled Nepali diasporas are there. And they are made up of two types of Nepali transnational migration. The first wave of Nepali transnational migration was before 1816. 1816 is the date Nepal had Sugauli Treaty with British India Company after the war, 2-year-long war with Nepal and British India, right? That war, that treaty determined the final border of modern Nepal, and up to that time, who migrated out of Nepal, they stay in India, Bhutan, Myanmar, Fiji, and England. That transnational migration made the first wave of Nepali migrants outside, and this was one reason of the making up established Nepali diaspora. Similarly, the second wave of Nepali transnational migration was from that date to 1970s. Okay, at that time, again, in different regions, for different regions, Nepal was not open to the other nation of the world. Nepal more or less had to be dependent upon British India and India till that time. That's why Nepali migration was primarily to India and through India to Bhutan, Myanmar, even to Fiji through India and England. There is this way. These two waves of Nepali migration, transnational migration, made established Nepali diaspora. And the next one, incipient Nepali diaspora, right? And it means, in the Hinden's term once again, it means localized mobile transnational formations, right? Localized. They have been localized there, established there, but they are not immobile. Still, they are moving, crossing the border frequently, more frequently than the permanent diaspora, right? They are still transnational. And how? They are also called growing Nepali diaspora, and sometimes they're also called new Nepali diaspora. The established one is called old Nepali diaspora, right? And now, in Europe, America, and Oceania, the incipient Nepali diaspora is growing. New Nepali diasporas are growing. And they are made up of the third wave of Nepali transnational migration that started from 1970s, when Nepal was declared the zone of peace in the world, and when more than 100 countries accepted that, Nepali people began to travel across the globe. After that, in these places, Nepali reached and they made a community. Once they made community there, they are going and growing the Nepali diaspora, right? And this caused, as I said, Nepali people to the global spread. And finally, these areas of connection extended from South Asia to Southeast Asia, Europe, America, Oceania, and West Asia. But one point to be noted here is that though many Nepalis were still migrating to Southeast Asia and West Asia, there are no Nepali diaspora because there is not permanent community of Nepali residents. They only just go for work. Once their work tenure is done, they come back. So they are not diaspora. They are simply making the transnational mobiles or the transnational economic immigrants. So Nepali diaspora is found only in Europe, America, and Oceania, as the term, the new Nepali diaspora or incipient diaspora is indicated. And the third category is very interesting and sometimes contesting in Nepali context. They are dormant Nepali diaspora. Dormant, right? The William Shepard's term, the Israeli scholar of the diaspora, he has this term, dormant diaspora. In his definition, according to his definition and discussion, this dormant Nepali diaspora is part of all Nepali diaspora in India, not in other countries, in India only. Again, where in India? It is a borderland Indian Nepali diaspora. For example, in Darjeeling, in Assam, in Kumaon, in Bihar, right? Those people who have migrated to India from Nepal and stayed there, they have met the borderland dormant Nepali diaspora. Why are they so? Because they try to think that they are pure Indian citizens. And they try to argue that they do not have any connection with Nepal. For example, if you look at Darjeeling, right, the Gorkhaland movement, had tried to disconnect them from Nepal, and they try to establish that they are pure Indian citizens. Yes, they are Indian citizens. They are Indian Nepalis. They say they don't say Nepali. They say Indian Nepalis, but still, the Indian mainstream does not accept them as pure Indians. There is a contradiction, and their culture, their identity, they all are more or less like the Nepali people's identity. I mean, again, they associate themselves with Nepal in terms of their identity and culture. They means the Indian mainstream. Similarly, such association time and again evoke their connection with Nepal. And Professor Michael James Hart says that those Indian Nepalis, finally, once they have the trouble in India, they remember Nepal. And once they are in difficulty in India, they travel back to Nepal. they again reconnect with the Nepal. But once still there is no need of any connection like that, they don't care about Nepal, and they try to establish that they are Indian people in their origin. Yes, they were born there for centuries, living there for for generations. But still, when there is a problem, right, they have to come to Nepal. This way, this type of right diaspora is called dormant diaspora. It's found in borderland Indian territories. They were made of the old Nepali diasporic movement. This is what I want to say about the types of Nepali diaspora, how they were made, and my argument is that by the way, by any way, means all the Nepali diasporans are the result of Nepali transnational migration. That's why, without considering transnational migration, we cannot talk about diaspora. And Nepali diaspora is a very good example of this theoretical principle and its application. Now, my final slide is this: Nepali diasporic literature. I don't go in detail. In my paper, there's a detail about this. But in Nepali diasporic literature, this is all these communities have different histories, life pattern, experiences, expectations, emotions, and imagination. All the three types of Nepali diasporans have their different types of histories, pattern, experience, expectation, emotions, and imagination, and the same things means their history, life, experience, emotions, imagination, they are expressed in their literary creations. As a result, the pattern of Nepali transnational migration has been the base of the creation of Nepali diaspora, because the emotion of Darjeeling Nepali people and the emotion of American Nepali people about Nepal is different, because their transnational migration pattern is different. The life pattern is different. History is different. The emotions are different. And Nepali literature exhibits this practically. And similarly, their literary creations exhibit different qualities of their life and consequent emotions and imagination. I have explained these ideas in my paper. And in short, that's all my presentation now. Thank you all. Thank you. Namaskar.
Thank you very much, Ramji Timal Sinaji, for well elaborative presentation from the definition of the diaspora to the categorization of Nepalese diaspora and discussing about the Nepali diaspora literature. I'll make my observation after the end of all the papers. Now, I invite, I think Mr. Ahmad Walid Bardas is not here. So now I invite, but I see Professor Kaji Abdul Manan. He is here. So would you like, Professor Kaji, would you like to make your presentation now?
Yeah.
Okay. So before I invite Nupur, I may request Professor Kaji to make a presentation on migration, diasporas, remittances, and sustainable development goals in Bangladesh. So it's over to you, Professor Kaji.
Professor Kaji, any issue? Any issue of screen sharing or anything? Please let us know so that we can help you. We are not able to hear you.
I think he is trying to share his screen.
No, he can share, but I don't know. He's not speaking also.
Hello.
We are.
Can you listen?
Yes, we can hear.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear.
Hello.
We can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Do you hear me?
Yes. Go ahead.
Hello.
Go ahead,
Yes,
please.
yes.
Hello.
We can.
Hello,
hear
yeah,
you.
please
We
go
can-
ahead.
Hello. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
We can hear you.
Good afternoon.
You start, please. I think some audio problem from his side. Let's go to other presenter because he'll be doing the correction.
Professor Sao, let's wait for 1 minute. Uh, Probably he is trying to share his screen.
Once he get ready, he can come back.
Yeah.
Always.
Then we can skip to the presentation.
Good afternoon.
Yes, we are able to hear you.
Hello.
We are hearing you. You can start, please. Yes, Professor, you can start your presentation. Please go on. You increase the volume. What we can do, Dr. Rajneesh?
Yes, sir. So
Let-
shall we?
let
Yeah,
it-
shall we invite to some other presenter
Yes,
now?
because
Oh.
by the time he'll be ready.
Okay. Okay, Professor Kazi. By the time we are getting ready, let's have another presentation, and thereafter we will come to you. So now, if Wallis has joined us, I don't see him yet. I don't see him. So may I ask Dr. Nupur Patnaik to make her presentation, which is themed on women workers issues and challenges in the time of pandemic. So yeah, Nupur is already ready. Yeah. So please, Nupur, begin your presentation.
A very good afternoon to respected chair, respected GRFTT team. Thank you so much for accepting my paper. First of all, I would like to explain about this topic. This is on migrating to women workers, issues and challenges in times of the pandemic. Am I audible, sir?
Yes,
am I
yes,
audible?
go ahead.
Yeah. So this particular paper explores the impacts and implications of the COVID-19 pandemic on women migrant workers. It examines how the global health crisis has both amplified existing gender dynamics and created new gender biased outcomes that disproportionately impact upon the women migrant workers. The study talks about the health, social, and the domestic care services that women migrant workers provide and which are considered essential during the pandemic, and it's also excludes them from these key services because of this particular pandemic. So the economic crisis which is induced by COVID-19 could be long, deep, and pervasive when viewed through the migration lens. The lockdowns, the travel bans, and the social distancing have brought global economic activities to a near standstill. Many countries are facing this vulnerability, and especially when we talk about the women migrant workers, women were always migrating with men. It was always with the men they used to migrate because it was men, because of the marriage process, they used to migrate, and because of the taking care of the men, they used to migrate. But today the things have changed. Women migrate because of the career, the other issues, like they migrate independently. That is what all about the female migration is all about. And what we see in these coming ages, that there is feminization of migration. So migration of women have been impacted due to this lockdown, these process, as they have been put into vulnerable position. If we see the women migrant workers, around 8.5 million women migrant domestic workers are on the onset of pandemic from their jobs, and they have this has led to dismissal from the jobs. Their health safety has been ignored and even violated. For migrant domestic workers, losing their jobs also means losing their place to live. The onset of travel restrictions, increased financial challenges, and uncertainty, with many stranded at home. So the economies of many countries around the world are sustained by the remittances sent home by women migrant workers, and remittances which they provide for the families. Because in today's context, what we come across, that it is not always a man who is a breadwinner, but a woman is also a breadwinner in today's world that we come across and see. So this particular COVID pandemic has highlighted many issues with the lockdown. So now let me just talk about the COVID-19 pandemic, which has put a constant on their mobility. They're staying back at home. Being the frontline workers, they have much of the work, and they are facing the inequalities by staying at home. And this COVID has brought about a lot of challenges, like loss of livelihood, reduced remittances. They have stresses on care and domestic work, and there is a lack of social protection and healthcare services. And then the last and the most important concept is the violence against women migrant workers. So what we come across, that the women workers, they are facing a loss of livelihood. Livelihood means they don't have anything, they don't have a lack of subsistence to reside, and their remittances, they are unable to send back home. And there is also stress on their work, and the violence that they are facing is their vulnerability. They are more and more vulnerable, because today we see, due to this pandemic, we have the notion of child trafficking and child marriage, which has increased in today's situation of pandemic. And migrant workers being easily available, they are easily taken into account, and they come from very less price. They can be easily being sold, and they are also taken as the bonded laborers. So we come across these kind of atrocities against the migrant female workers that they are encountering. There are a lot of gender inequalities also we come across, like payment structure and many other things that they suffer. They suffer from exploitation from the contract labor supervisors, and many other aspects that they suffer. Let me just say some of the other things. The data that I have collected for this particular paper is secondary, and I have collected from different reports, different news reports, as the media has been very active in this particular issue of covering the migrant workers, and it has been one of the pertinent issue. And some of the reports by the Indian International Organization for Migration. So I would just give some of the sociological perspectives in this female migration. First of all, it's the push and pull factors that basically is a prototype for this migration. And then we have this aspect of some of the aspects related to gender theories and gender related aspects, and the post migration theory that we could include over here, that is responsible. And some of the case studies that I would like to quote here, that I have come across by quoting some of the things. There's a person called Jamlo Madkam, a 12-year-old Adivasi girl, was walking home to Chhattisgarh from the chilli fields of Telangana. She walked 140 kilometers in 3 days and finally collapsed due to exhaustion. And 60 kilometers away from it was 60 kilometers away from home. And another news video which was found, that a woman migrant gave birth. She was pregnant and she gave birth on the road by continuing her long, seemingly endless march to home. So this COVID has brought about a lot of issues, a lot of things that there are many issues which are left that that I could have I could, if permitted, I could say some of the case studies that there are other issues also, like women and children. Children are totally attached to the mother, and how because of the woman the children are also facing the circumstances or the problem. So there was women, children, men who were seated in a particular place, and there was bleach solution that was sprayed on them. So there were many atrocities that were taking place during this period of time. And according to the IOM World Migration Report, migrant women represent 74% of the service industry, which includes domestic works, and in many cases experience job insecurity. Because due to the COVID pandemic, what we encounter is there is a huge lot of xenophobia. There's a huge lot of exploitation. There is an aspect of differentiation or a kind of stigmatization that we come across. Like the women are encountering stigmas, like they might be COVID. They might be like some of the domestic workers. They are working as housemaids, and they too are also migrants. They are migrants from different places, and when they are coming to work, because that is only the source of livelihood, so when they come to work, they also face this kind of insecurity. So there are many forms of insecurity that, or we can say job loss due to the COVID pandemic that women are facing. So while the COVID-19 doesn't discriminate at all, it it affects everybody. So the crisis for the workers, according to the International Organization's World Migration Report 2020, migrant women represent around 74% of the service industry, which includes domestic work, and in many cases experience job insecurity. And due to the COVID-19 outbreak, mobility and travel restrictions have limited their travel, and particularly domestic workers are more affected by this particular issue. So lastly, I would just like to say that, that migrant women workers are a part and an essential part of the migration process, and they have been neglected. Because this is a reframing of the policies. Because when we step into the post-COVID world, we come across a new range of policies that could be framed, that could be taken into account to bring about certain changes in the livelihood conditions of the migrant workers. So this is what I need to say. Thank you so much for patient listening. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Dr. Nupur, for precise presentation and narrating the situation evolved because of this pandemic, and especially highlighting the issues faced by the women's. Now, may I invite Professor Kaji Abdul Mannan, if he is ready with his presentation? Is there no more technical hinges there? I think he is still facing some problem. So now I invite Oliva Chart to be making presentation on Ukrainian migrants in Poland descent, a study of descent work concept in migration. Oh, I think.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, Oliver, please wait. We have got Professor Kaji now. Professor Kaji, please. Go ahead.
Okay, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much for accepting that. The topic is migration, diaspora, remittance, and the sustainable development goal in Bangladesh. This paper examines the key issue or areas identified in the SDS target that impact on the development potential migration and diaspora, particularly remittance in Bangladesh. The situation of migrant workers in highlight SDS 8 on economic growth and decent work. The issue trafficking is mentioned in several SDS, for instance, SDS 16 on peaceful societies. Migration status is mentioned in specifically as factor for disaggregation during the follow-up and review in SDS 7 SDG 70. SDG targets 10.7 call for well-managed migration policies, and 10C refer to reduce the transaction cost of our migration and remittance. Migration and diaspora. According to International Organization for Migration, the number of international migrants globally in 2019, 272 million, of which 52% of international migrants were male and 48% were female. India continued to be the largest country of origin of international migrants. India had the largest number of migrants living abroad, 17.5 million, followed by Mexico, China. The top destination country remained the United States, 50.7 million international. The number of migrant workers declined slightly in high-income countries while decreasing elsewhere. Between 2013 and 2017, high-income countries experienced a slightly drop in migrant workers from 112.3 million to 111.2. Upper middle income countries observed the biggest increase. Remittance and development. Remittance has become the main source of external financing for developing countries. Remittance have proven the key resource, mainly developing countries in terms of plans of payment. It is important to note that the migration is very much heavily decision remittance, and it's a part of bond between remitter and their household member that are left behind. Remittance are a major source of income for many lower income households like Bangladesh. It is estimated over 80% of funds that are remitted in use immediate consumption. However, the increasing share of remittance is used for longer terms investment, land, housing, education, and so on. Remittance have become a major factor in poverty reduction in developing world. However, the benefit for low-income communities could be expanded and local investment can boost. Remittance are used by financial institutions to expand and deepen access to credit remittance receivers. This is basically important for promoting financial inclusion, given that the remittance receiving country have large unbanked population. This study included a mapping exercise covering SDG-related content published in selected print and online media. This data has been collected through online search and search as well as manual search, particularly where online version either absent or inadequate. In the case of Bangladesh, MDG success favored the SDG. The country has met the target of reducing population proportion of population below the national line 3 years ahead time, which presently stands at 22.4%. It has reached the target of reducing infant mortality rate 92 per 1,000 live birth and 19 now. The country has achieved nearly 100% enrollment in primary school and in the priority with more girls than boys in primary and secondary school. It has made the target preventing malaria, death, and rising share of people improving drinking well. Decreasing prevalence of underweighting children below age of 5 from 66%. Bangladesh is equally confident to embrace the new target of SDG, and Prime Minister has expressed, the country has expressed a deep commitment to achieve SDG target before the time of 2023. Country initiative in achieving the SDG perspective. SDG 8 focuses on improving economic data sustainable while the ensuring the average real income of both employed and unemployed persons, especially in the least developed countries, are improved significantly. Challenge for SDG 8. Achieving SDG 8 target face some key challenges concerning increasing informally in market, high youth unemployment rate, skill demand and supply, mismatch, low female labor force participant, low inflow of foreign resource, ODA and FDA workplace injuries and labor and problem involving migrant workers. Perspectives of SDG 16. Victim of human trafficking and sexual violence is decreasing. You can see the baseline 2015 to 2017 is decreasing. So challenges for SDG 16 to ensure that peace justice include the lack of comprehensive and update data on various offense, proper enforcement on law, capacity of judicial system to handle heavy volume of case, lack of reporting, timely reporting, and induced violence crime. SDG 17 focus on strength means of implementation sustainable goal through enhancing resources, mobilizing capacity, domestic, external, developing country, long-term debt, sustainability through coordinating policy, adopting inclusive investment, promoting. External financing, you can say some data, ODA, FDA 2010 to 2019, it is, and remittance is 15.54. Remittance as portion of GDP is also depend on few years. You can see financial year 2010 to 2019, it's increasing 5.6 to 9.6. So challenge for SDG 17, despite impressive in country the performance, there are challenges, especially in area mobilizing, in implementing require the inventory toward the achieving target. So finally, majority of the indicator of which data are available, chances they are achieved remarkable during the SDG implementation period are tracked. Government revenue portion of GDP has increased more than estimated required. That on ODA indicated the modest along with the contribution national budget will be inflow of FDI and remittance require sustainable substantial increase. Other indicators such as internet access and fiber optics also developing. So the things that's all.
Thank you very much, Professor Kazi, for making your observation on migration, diaspora, remittances, and sustainable development in the context of Bangladesh. Now, as you could see, Mr. Amlesh Kumar Sinha is also there. So, Mr. Amlesh, can you make your presentation now? Okay, then I don't, if he is not there, then let's move towards the last presentation of the session. May I invite Olivia Chart?
Hello. Hello, sir.
Yes.
Hello, sir. I'm Amlesh Kumar
Amlesh.
Sinha. Amlesh Kumar Sinha. Yes, sir.
Would you like to make presentation now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So before I invite Olivia Chart, I request Mr. Amlesh Kumar Sinha to make his presentation on hate crimes and perspectives of the American dream.
Yes,
yes, Amlesh, please.
Thank you, Rajesh, sir. Thank you, Chair. And hello, everyone. Am I audible to everyone?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'm Amlesh Kumar Sinha, research scholar in American Studies Division in Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. Before starting my presentation, on hate crime and perspectives of American Dream, I would like to thank the entire team, the GRFDI, MFA, and CISAN, who has given me a wonderful opportunity to present my perspective and my idea on this platform with you. Thanks a lot. So I'm going to present my presentation on the hate crime and perspectives of American Dream. So here, American Dream is a soul spirit of American society and culture. It is the core value of the idea of America, and it is already reflecting in the Charter of United States, and it is coming in the second paragraph of the charter, and declared that the all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their certain unalienable right, the right which provides the life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, so that secure these rights, government are instituted among man, deriving their just power from the consent to govern. It is unique in a sense that it is part of the charter. It appears in the second sentence of the charter that shows the importance of American dreams. Life in America is characterized by full of personal liberty and opportunity to degree unequal by any country in the globe. This term American Dream is coined by James Truslow Adams in his epic work, Epic of America in 1931. According to Adams, he defines the dream that the dream of the land in which life should be better and richer and fuller for everyone, with opportunity for each, according to ability of achievement. It is not a dream of motor car or highway merely, but a dream of social order in which each man and each woman shall be able to attain to the fullest es- status of which they are initially capable, and be recognized by other for what they are. The, the characteristics of American dream as it come under the lexicon is variable. The meaning of this phrase has been changing according to hopes, wants, and needs for the day. In the year of 1913, when Woodrow Wilson was elected as the 28th President of United States, in that period, the American dream of frontline man was to hear Wilson speak about the borderline evils. Wilson declared, we were squandered a great part of what we might have used, and what not stopped to conserve the exceeding boundary of nature, without which our genius of enterprises would have been witnessed and important. Wilson in 2013. The meaning of American dream was taking a societal notion or shared dream during the office of Franklin Donald Roosevelt in 1933. When he implemented the New Deal, the American dream was not merely a promise. A better and richer and fuller life can be visualized together. Today, part of the paracle of the framework of American dream is all about upward mobility, in which a person can climb the ladder of success and achieve the higher social and economic positions. For this achievement, equal opportunity and absence of bias-based hate crime is also seen as the American dream today. The problem of fulfilling of success, however, play a part the problem of failure. Success is success is a certain central theme of America. Self-image, and due to this, they have a dream and hope to achieve. It is not in the habit of Americans. To think about failure, Jennifer Leigh Holsinger argued in his book, Facing Up to the American Dream's Race, Class, and the Soul of the Nation, that, furthermore, the better the dream work for other people, the more advancement in failure for the similar and the smaller proportion of people left behind. The role of race for achieving the American dream. In this topic, I'm going to argue about how the race are facing the problems to achieve the dream which is promised by the charters, the constitution of USA is known as the land of equal opportunity and freedom, where any ethnic group, race, man or woman can have a fair chance to achieve his or her desired goal. In other words, If someone works hard enough, he can be anything which is desired. If someone deadly wants something, he can surely get that. This is the promise of Charter. Their comments describe the American dream. According to recent Census Bureau data, white Americans are 22 times richer than the blacks. The American dreams may not be possible for everyone. Economic mobility is highly dependent on the influenced on the race, economic background, and the neighborhood. In America, race determines not just where someone resides and which school he she attended. It affects the environment in which we breathe. It will be impossible to define the very way that racial discrimination affect ethnicity, race, and other than white people every day. The dream of equality is yet to be achieved by the people. Martin Luther King Jr., in his path-breaking speech in 1963, stated that it is the dream deeply rooted in the American dreams. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live up the true meaning of its creed. We hold this truth to be self-evident that all men are created equal. Lisa Firestone is a clinical psychologist who wants to find out the root of the violence on the different race, on the different ethnicity. So she argued that and find out the cause. She argued that violent behavior can be triggered by frustration, anger, or a perceived humiliation. Further in this paper, I will discuss why the supremacist, why the white people or the established one eager to tack on the different ethnicity, where the Sikh people or the different race are going to be on the receiving end of the hate crime. So, according to Lisa Firestone, she finds out that the violent behavior can be triggered by frustration, anger, or and a perceived humiliation. It its purpose can be retaliate or intimidate or exert control. Indian Americans is a confusing term. Basically, Indian because there are Indian Americans, the ethnic one also called as the Indian Americans. Indian Americans is a confusing term with the Native Americans. So the United States Census Bureau uses the term for we Indians as the Asian Americans. But as Asian Americans, we know that the Asia is the largest continent. So to make clarity, I'm going to use the term Indian American as our country. I'm from India, so I want to represent the things as Indian American as these things. So I'll use the Indian Americans on behalf of Asian Americans. The diversity of this group is in USA creates difficulty to specify or categorize these people as a group. Nicole Bryan, in his book Indian Americans One Nation, argued and given the clarity about the diversity. He quoted, the country is about one third the size of the United States, but more than 1 billion people live there. The people are of a variety of religions and ethnic group. They speak many languages. The group represents most of the major religion in the world. These groups This group member may be Hindu, Buddhist, Sikh, Christians, Muslims, Jews, Jains, or Persian. From ancient time, the land of India has been the home of many ethnic groups who reside on that land. So, this land has provided the natural environment for the race mixing and amalgamation of different ethnicity. The people of this land are full of hybrid racial or ethnic stocks. It it means people could be white, yellow, brown, or black, and they can be mixed facial features and physical appearance. In the different phases of time in American history, the people called by different names like Caucasians, Asians, white or brown people. Indian American consists a group not only the people from India but also from the different parts of the world. The long history of civilization and colonial past have created a situation that so many parts of the world have home of this group. United Kingdom, South Africa, East Asia, Pacific Island, and Caribbean are major contributors of this group in USA. The people of this group speak so many different languages and practice different customs. Despite of this, that They have a common culture bond that connects each member so that other, 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 others recognize them as one ethnic group in USA. Indian Americans are the fastest growing community in the USA. Things had changed after the Immigration and National Act of 1965. This law passed by 89th United States Congress after the abolition of National Origins Formula, which was the law of US immigration policy since 1920. This new act of 1965 prompt the immigration from USA. I'll discuss in my paper that how its effect to migrate from this new independent country to the most powerful country on that time, the USA. What was the cause? In my paper, I'll discuss it. But so there are groups of Indian American people who are the contrast to the successful Indian American people. Although we the largest diaspora is there, the most successful people are there, but despite of that fact, there is a different angle also in this particular case, because we have already seen that there are so many people who wish to migrate to that land, but they are trapped into that matrix. So there are groups of Indian American people who are the contrast to the successful Indian American people, the thousands of people trapped into the lower sectors economy. They are basically into the blue collar job, such as taxi driver, workers in factory, truck driver, and assistant in the shop. These people are most vulnerable for the atrocity of hate crime. Lisa Firestone, we again come to the point of the Lisa Firestone, where she was trying to make she was trying to find out the causes of the hate crime, and she was pointing out that the people are fear. The people have the fear to take away by the job by these immigrants. So the fear of taking away the jobs has been one of the main cause of the hate crime against Indian Americans. Indian Americans community once again on the receiving end of hate crime in America after the terrorist attack of the US soil in 1991 incident took places. Because after that attack, the US people symbolized the terrorist as the long beard and the turbans. The Afghans has that attire, and the similarity, the resemblance of that attire, the Indian people, one community from the India, the Sikh Indians, have the almost same attire. So they were on the receiving end. Sadhu, the first Nojo, some Sadhu, was the first people who was killed by the US citizens on the basis of hate crime. So this time, due to the mistake identity, Sikh Americans were on the target because they were resemblance with the Taliban leaders and people. Because Sikh people wear turbans according to their religious beliefs and grow their beards long, which looks similar to the Afghan Taliban people.
Kamlesh, sorry to interrupt you. You have already taken 15 minutes.
I'm just
and
going to
one
finish
more
it.
presentation.
Within 1 minute, I'm going to finish it.
Yeah, take 2 minutes.
Okay.
Take
okay.
2-3 minutes, but within 3 minutes, continue.
Okay. So in this paper, I'm going to narrate all these things, and the conclusion: the dream, however, easier for certain people over other, and the claim on being the land of freedom and equal opportunity shows the hypocrisy and irony. Ethnicity, race, social status, and gender are all essential factors that play an important role in one capacity to achieve the American dream. But despite of this fact, US is one of the dream land for Indian immigrants where they can visualize to accomplish their dream. There are numerous examples that show that there are people who are dying to enter into the border of United States of America at any cost. This is a bitter truth that over a year, thousands of Indians have entered or tried to enter into the US boundaries without any document. This phenomena turned the Indians one of the fastest growing illegal immigrants in the American because America is still the dream for many. Many in these illegal immigrants have thrived, and many lives in a permanent fear. And for many more, this land of opportunity ends up with a nightmare or misery and running of life. If so, I'll put this all things in this paper. Thank you for listening me.
Thank
Thank you,
you,
sir.
Amlish. Now we are moving towards the last paper, I would say, not the last session, the last paper in this session. It's all is from Poland. Uh, Oliva Chard, who would be making presentation on is the work of Ukrainian migrants in Poland descent, a study of the descent work concept in migrants experience and institutional context. So, Oliva, it's over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Welcome to you all. I wanted just to make sure that you can see my screen.
Yes, your screen is visible and you are also visible. So please
Okay,
make your presentation.
great. I'm really thankful for the invitation to speak here. I will try to keep it short because I see that we don't have much time. I also am very happy for previous presentations, especially the one on decent work methodology. This way I could shorten my part on methodology. Key concepts in my presentations are labor migration, work experience, and decent work. Labor migration can be understood in public statistics and in legal frameworks differently. This is basically a challenge for me how to understand Ukrainian migrants in Poland when they are here very in short-term basis. So this was a main challenge in my definition process. I decided that also short-term migrants, meaning being here in Poland less than 3 months, and also circular migration should be incorporated in my research. And labor migration means that migrating to Poland is specifically to work. I excluded people who tried to gain international protection in Poland, joined families here, or came here to study. Then when it comes to work experience and working conditions in statistics in Poland, we have in most of the cases, the studies focus on safety and safety and occupational health. So basically decent work understood as in sustainable development goals is not popular in research at all. And when it comes to decent work, we have different possibilities to understand this concept. First of all, we have report Caring for Work or In Search for Work from 2004 here in Poland, where Ministry of at the time it was Ministry for Development tried to understand if we should translate this term into Polish in such an interpretation that it would be understood in minimalistic or maximalistic way. This minimalistic way would mean that it's a pragmatic decency of work, that it's safe, that people who work are barely satisfied, when idealistic understanding and interpretation would mean that this work mainly gives the opportunity to fully fulfill to self-fulfillment in employment process. So I would not. I don't want to. I don't want to repeat after my colleague from the previous presentations. What is decent work? I would just underline that the target of the 2030 UNDP agenda for sustainable development is the most important in my study. So this one, which emphasize that migrants, especially women migrants, are important in monitoring and assessing decent work concept. So here you have potential research fields when it comes to assessing decent works. So we have opportunities for work that is productive and delivers a fair income, security in the workplace, better prospects for personal development, freedom for people to express their concerns and organize and participate in the decisions that affect their lives. And equality of opportunity and treatment for all women and men. What is important that this ILO's concept is more is closer to this idealistic, maximalistic interpretation of decent work. So I wanted just to stress that in Poland, what is researched when it comes to agenda 2030 agenda implementation is basically occupational safety and health and the possibility of workers to form trade unions. Also, I wanted to stress that this tier classification is something important for my research. So this methodology of ILOs indicates that we have 3 tiers of targets of research on these targets. So we have goal 8, then we have particular targets, and those targets can have fully developed and internationally agreed methodology, but this concept, decent work, and especially the target 8.8 is now in the tier 2nd. The tier 2nd means that the methodology is agreed and developed, but countries lack data. They don't provide sufficient data and don't do it regularly if they do. And this is the case for Poland because we don't have a decent work country program, which was launched by International Labour Organization in 1988. Till this day, we don't have this decent work country program in Poland, which should help with research, implementation, and assessment of this decent work concept. I also want to stress that, in my opinion, the data disaggregation is not focused enough on migrant status. It is basically the decent work for all focuses far more on gender equality, which is also important, but I think that migrant status should also be obligatory as a data disaggregation. So most of the instruments provided by the ILO's guidelines are quantitative data. And I wanted to talk a bit about why I think it is important and maybe valuable to implement also qualitative data to decent work research. I think that especially if we talk about migrants and migration, we encounter language barrier. So if we only pursue questionnaires, the questions can be not understood, misunderstood, or can be simply too hard to fully understand or to even affect the will of the respondents to to fill the questionnaire. The second thing is lack of trust. Obviously, a lot of migrants and a huge problem, a huge challenge within decent work concept and its implementation is legal work. Illegal work is understood as a work that should be abolished in ILO's terms. I think that if we want to research it precisely, of course, we will still encounter various difficulties when it comes to illegal work. But I think that trust that could be at least a little bit built in-depth interview is potentially better for the outcomes. The third thing that was very important in my research is the autonomous construction of meaning by the respondents. So I think that migrants should have themselves in locally specific contexts should have themselves the possibility to impact what does decent work mean, what they think decent work is, and what are their needs. So this autonomy of in construction of meaning for me is important. So very shortly, here are the details of my research report. We are talking about 10 in-depth interviews with Ukrainian migrant workers, 2 in-depth interviews with migration research and legal aid experts. The recruitation and way of conducting the interviews were basically it all had to be online because of the coronavirus. This is, please be aware that this is not a representative research. This is an exploration. So because of the scope, the sampling is not representative. Here you have interview structure. I'm not going to maybe waste my time more on this topic. This is the summary of my respondents' demographic traits and other characteristics. What is very important here is which region of Ukraine they come from and how big is this city. This relates afterwards to the cultural capital and migration nets. I will talk about that a bit more afterwards. Please note that the reason for emigration in respondent 1 data is homophobia. Please note that this interview was conducted at the beginning of May 2020, and it could be maybe otherwise described after the elections in Poland and very homophobic the public discourse, especially by governing politics. What is important is that duration of stay in Poland is always more than 2 years. So it relates to, for example, legal basic of employment. When people are here more than 2 years, they usually, from what I've gathered, seek only for labor contract. So this is why this labor contract, the most secure contract, is there is overrepresentation of this contract in my study. This is connected with the legal frames of stay and employment in Poland. It's very hard and it costs a lot to renew your permits, work and stay permits. Every other time you acquire a new job, labor contract should guarantee longer duration of the contract and more secure employment, and this is why this is the most attractive for them. So as you can see, most of the people have higher education. This is the trend in Ukrainian migration to Poland. This is a new trend. This is a new trend that people who come here are usually very well qualified, not only construction and cleaning and other simple works, but nevertheless, it's very hard for them to acquire work that is aligned with their qualifications and education. As you can see, this is usually gastronomy, cleaning, construction, deliveries. Deliveries are very, so Uber Eats and alike is very popular now in Poland. So here you have a very short context of this migration. It is said by, for example, research team from University of Economics in Krakow as the biggest migration flow in recent years to Ukraine, to European Union generally. As you can see, Ukraine migrants are the most popular group, and the dominance is very clearly seen. So I will skip this push and pull factors. This is basically
Olivia,
yeah.
Can you conclude in another 2 minutes?
Yes,
Because
yes,
we are
of course.
quickly running out of time.
Yes, okay. So conclusions are that in the study, most dominant was a pragmatic understanding of decent work. Only 2 of the respondents understood decent work in an idealistic way, meaning they wanted to have autonomy in their working conditions, and they stressed the possibility to personal development in work. The dominant determinant of positive work experience was obviously migration nets and information, especially information gathered per social media and informal ways. This is very important, that institutional contact was very rarely seen, and in this way, Polish government and non-governmental organizations should improve their marketing and promoting of the support they aspire to provide. When it comes to intersectional perspective, women were most likely to agree to unpaid extra hours. I think that it may be connected with the care work that they provided and seeing it as more voluntarily activity than work. When it comes to socioeconomic background and language, it was not a very dominant determinant, but the background of knowledge of Polish language was, of course, very important. When it comes to impact and challenges of COVID-19, we can see that people are still coming to Poland. It was a few months of awaiting in a very uncertain situation, but after all, there is still need in Poland, especially in agriculture, for migrant work, which may seem as a bit instrumental, but it is definitely a reason why Polish government and Polish migration policy still allow for a huge migration flow from Ukraine, even though COVID-19 is now a very huge problem here. So the last slide is my recommendations. You can see them here, and if you'd like to contact me later and discuss them, I invite you to do that. Basically, the migration policy of Poland is non-existent. We had one document in 2016, but then it was cancelled. So the most important is migration policy and the governmental ways to secure the execution of human rights and labor rights and non-discrimination practices in the labor market, because Ukrainian migrants are being discriminated both in their private and working lives. Also, they should definitely regulate more employment agencies, because employment agencies play a huge role in this migration, and they are often said to be violating labor and human rights of those migrants. Thank you very much, and I encourage you to contact me afterwards.
Thank you, Olivia, for highlighting major issues on the Ukrainian migrants in Poland. And not only usually we study, we make some conclusion, we refrain to give any recommendations, but we see lots of concrete recommendations which would be useful for the people who are engaged in the policy formulation and policy implementation, as well as, of course, for the for the ample use of the academicians. It's not only the academic discussion, but also useful for the policymakers. Now, with this, all the presentations of this session are over. We have less than 10 minutes now. So before I make my observations, my comments, I invite observations from the participants. Any observation, questions, comments, anything from the participant side?
Thank you, Chair. If I may, sorry, my name doesn't reflect correctly there, but this is Paddy Sianga Knudsen, and I am working as a consultant, and in this forum, I'm part of the advisory committee of GRFDT. So very nice to have been and followed some of the deliberations in this room. I think I would like to congratulate you on your good chairmanship of the session. It's been very interesting. I have two questions.
Yes,
one, I have plenty more, but I think for the interest of time, I'll leave it for the last two speakers. My first question is for Amal Sinha on the American Dream. Amal, thank you for that presentation. I think it was very interesting to hear the different, the way the perspective that you put on the concept of the American Dream. When I used to live in China, there was a famous saying they used to say is, live the American dream in China. And I've heard others say the same thing. In Zambia, where I come from, we have had a long-standing friendship with India. And I have a lot of Indian friends who have said, live the American dream in Zambia. So I just wanted to get a sense from you whether when you were looking at this concept of a dreamland, that's sort of far beyond there. And when you made a few of a comparison, did you sort of see this in bringing it into your perspective? Why I also ask if you sort of thought that it depended on the type of motivation to migrate, if you like. Did that really determine how people catched on to this dream? I like the way you brought gender, but I thought it would have been interesting to hear a little bit more on what the American dream looked like, depending on not just your skill set, but also your gender. What did that mean? I think you made a few references to that. So it would be good to hear a little bit more about sort of, diversifying this dream, and also maybe a little bit about talking, today we are all, I think, looking at our computers and wondering what the election would tilt to. Do you sort of see what?
Okay, your point is well taken. Do you have any other
the
comment?
Other point was for Olivia, talking about, I think I like the recommendations that you have made in the end, and I agree with the chair in the need for recommendations that speak to public policy. My question was more related to who you thought would be interesting to bring onto that social dialogue. It seems as though even in some papers that were presented also on a Polish immigrant agency organizations, this seems to be a resounding thing on how immigrants are sort of integrated into the space. So who are the actors that you were thinking about in bringing on this table together? Thank you very much, Chair.
Okay. Well, any other comment? Dr. Sahu?
Yes, Dr. Gupta.
Would you like to make any observation on these papers?
No, I was not very attentive here. I was listening to another session. So
okay.
Better. We have already, time is approaching. We can conclude.
Yeah, time is approaching. So now may I ask the speakers to respond the queries of Ms. Nudeshan, if I'm pronouncing properly.
I could respond very quickly.
Yeah, first Olivia, yeah, please.
Yes, so the actors are basically, many actors are important here. So it should be both government, migration agencies, but also non-governmental organizations, both in Poland and in Ukraine. This is very important because people who come here are usually intertwined and somehow connected in some weird legal context and contracts. Also, I think trade unions are very important. Both Polish trade unions and trade union of Ukrainian migrant in Poland, I think they should cooperate with each other. And I think this social actor is, maybe it's a huge challenge here in Poland, but this would be probably the best solution, as migrant status gives you this, I think, a very uncertain position. So to somehow guarantee yourself and advocate for yourself individually is very hard and sometimes very dangerous. So I would say trade unions. But my last answer here is that the National Guard, so the Border Guard, and the National Labor Inspectorate should definitely separate the legal stay and legal work. So I think that this would be a recommendation for the legislative agencies to somehow separate those two, because then we will have a better position of migrants to advocate for themselves and to have a better position not to be exploited generally. Thank you.
Okay, Amlesh?
Yes, sir. So,
would you like to answer?
Yes. Basically, American administration usually doesn't provide equal opportunity to all Americans, or other are based on the color or their skin, or however they are from different race. Ideologically, America is promising for the equal opportunity, but in reality, ironically, does not doing quite the opposite. US Constitution providing the framework in which everyone can be treated equal in the current situation of COVID-19 and the issue of H-1B visa has provided the window for opportunity for many Indian Americans to shift their country, which is ready to play an important role in the world with a more trained and advanced vision. Of course, Indian American community want USA for better opportunity in terms of job, lifestyle, and advancement of their qualification. Now, Indians community or the people are returning back to to her country for being work with an early stage startup programs, and Indian people looking this process as a brain gain despite of brain drain.
Okay, so with this, now we have come to an end, and time is also almost approaching. It's almost 5 p.m. in India, which was the scheduled time of conclusion of this session. So Dr. Sahu is here. So Dr. Sahu, would you like to make any comment now, or is there any reporter's report need to be read here?
No, we have rapporteurs. He will prepare the report, but on behalf
that would be
on
yeah, in the valedictory. Okay.
I thank Dr. Gupta for chairing so well and managing the time.
Thank you.
And also all the participants, all the paper presenters who came from various countries, sharing their research findings here. And it's a range of subject I could see, from history, from political science, and from other subject, and very empirical and very much theoretical also. So it's a very rich, in fact, discussion. I thank you all the participants, and I request you that this paper you take the feedback and improve it and send it to us within a month. Okay, and thank you. Goodbye. Last announcement.
Okay.
Our program will run in room number 1. Please be there in room number 1. There will be very interesting plenary session on climate change and forced migration. And followed by so many other interesting programs. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Namaskar. Bye-bye.
Namaste. Namaste to
Can we
everyone.
ask for Zoom link to room number 1?
Yes, yes, I'll give you. I'll give you now. In fact, do you have program schedule?
Sir, I would also want the same link.
Okay,
What the
I'll
Olivia did.
I'll give you here. In
Okay,
a
sir.
minute, I'll give you here.
Use the same link we used yesterday for plenary, Dr. Sadam?
Yes, it's all plenary, all valedictory, all the migrant achiever are same.
Same, yes.
I'm just sending you in a minute. Meanwhile, I think the participant can fill this form. I'm just sending to everyone. I'm sending the other one also. Yes. Please find the link to that room number 1 I just shared.
Okay, sir.
Okay, and thank you all. Very exciting paper, and I could, I could listen few things, but I was not very attentive to this session. I was listening to other session as well. So we'll see you in room number 1.
Okay.
Okay, thank you,
Thank
Sada.
you,
We'll
sir.
meet there.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for listening.